interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard.
We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often there will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in their home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, I'm Rory Smith in the GB Newsroom. Fines for employers and landlords who allow unauthorised migrants to work for them or live in their properties are to be significantly increased under plans to deter channel crossings. The Home Office argued that illegal working and renting are pulling factors for migrants crossing the channel and that increasing fines will serve as a deterrent. But Labour says that penalties issued to firms employing workers illegally had fallen under the Tories by 2/3 since 2016. Officials expect the measures to be enforced from the start of next year. Meanwhile, the first asylum seekers are to be housed on the Bibi Stockholm barge in the coming days. Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick says around 50 people will enter the vessel in Portland Port in Dorset this week. Mr Jenrick says increasing the numbers in the barge to the capacity of around 500 is still the plan. That's despite concerns from the Fire Brigades Union over the vessel initially designed to house around 200 people. Those who have been wrongfully convicted of crimes will no longer have their living costs docked from their compensation payments. New guidance issued by Justice Secretary Alex Chalk comes into effect as of today. It follows the controversy sparked by the jailing of Andrew Malkinson, who spent 17 years behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. Donald Trump has targeted the federal judge assigned to the case, charging him with seeking to overturn the 2020 presidential election. In a social media post, Trump said, "There is no way I can get a fair trial with the judge assigned." No formal request has been filed with the court. Well, it comes as a lawyer for Donald Trump says that the former president was simply exercising his right to free speech when he asked lawmakers to defy the will of their voters. Trump pleaded not guilty in court last week. The Health Security Agency is investigating after at least 57 triathletes fell ill after taking part in swimming competitions off the Wearside coast in Sunderland. Around 2,000 people took part in the UK leg of the World Triathlon Championship Series last weekend. The Health Security Agency says it is asking those with symptoms to send a sample for testing to determine the cause of the illness. Northumbrian Water says there have been no sewage discharges at the beach since 2021. This is GB News across the UK on TV, in your car, on digital radio and on your smart speaker by saying play GB News. Now though, time for headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Josh Howie, and joining me to go through Monday's newspapers is a comic with a podcast, but it's a successful one, Francis Foster. Well done on that, mate. And returning to Headliners after touring the other side of the world, it's Kerry Marks. Hey, I was expecting a big round of applause, but I forgot that
there's no audience. There's no one here, mate. They're applauding at home.
Can't make up an audience.
How you doing, Kerry? I haven't seen you for a long time.
I have been out of it across the other side of the world and do a number of other bits and pieces in other countries.
You look very Antipodean, like your shirt is open, I can see a little bit of chest
where
hair.
the mic went, I had no choice. It just worked out that way. But I've been out of news cycle completely for a while. And what I feel is I have a belief that if you don't watch this isn't great to say on a show like this, if you don't watch the TV at all for a few months, or you watch it a lot, you know roughly about the same amount.
Well, let's just say we're still going to talk about immigration.
Cool. Nothing's changed. Good.
Right, let's have a look at those front pages then. There's a little technical snafu, so we're going to do them manually. Here we go. Remote island plan for channel migrants. Woohoo! Let's go to the next one. I don't know, I can't read that well. Bosses who hire illegal immigrants face ruin. Woohoo! Let's go for the next one. MPs defy anger over second jobs with outside earnings of 10 million. Ooh, and we got how many more? Oh, here we go. This is a good one. 74% demand action on danger dogs. That's actually something I totally agree with there. And secret labs vaccine plan to prevent bird flu pandemic. Yeah, I'm sure we're not going to hear about that one again. And finally, the Daily Star, a logical captain. And that's your front pages. I think we'd do it that way the whole time. Kicking things off with the Daily Mail, Francis.
Yes, so this talks about the Conservative government's new ways for immigration, their new immigration scheme, which is they're going to send illegal migrants to the island of Ascension. And what they're going to do is they're going to send them there, and it's pretty much a deserted island. It's about 1,000 miles off the coast of South America, 1,500 off the coast of Africa. And it's 4,000 miles from the UK, and they're just going to place them there before then deciding where to send them, which is a great scheme.
Interesting. Now, the thing is, there's a slight problem in this, I believe, that, Kerry, you've actually been to this island.
I've been to the island.
It's wonderful.
And you know, whilst it's going from one extreme, Rwanda is one extreme, to go to, let's send them to it's a tropical paradise. It is beautiful. I mean, there's volcanic rock and then the most incredible tropic, beautiful mountain and so on. It's an island with no insects on it.
Wow.
Really?
Let's send them to the insect. I want to live on the insect. I would jump at the chance to live there.
There's no mosquitoes on
the beaches are empty. No mosquitoes. The beaches are empty. They are beautiful. There's giant turtles along the beach. There are. Can you say the word farting on this programme? I think that's not too far. Good.
Yeah.
There are farting rocks. There are farting rocks. You walk along the beach, and because there's air holes running through the rocks, you hear this sound, and it's actually fascinating.
Well, human rights lawyers are going to have a field day with the old farting rocks. That sounds like abuse to me.
Well, can I identify then as an illegal migrant?
Well, I think it's going to... Well, you don't need to identify. We know your past. But this sounds like it could well backfire then, Francis.
Well, what it looks like is another poorly thought-out way.
Shock.
I know, from the Conservatives, who just... They cannot seem to get it together. They cannot seem to get it together. They can't seem to put together a coherent strategy. And the whole thing is a shambles.
Well, the good news is there isn't an election coming up in the next year.
Yeah.
What does Monday's Telegraph have, Perry?
The Telegraph tells us that bosses who hire illegal migrants, and then it puts in inverted commas, face ruin, which I assume, because it's not part of one sentence, I don't mean that they will face ruin. They mean that they're going to ruin their faces, which I think is a bit over the top, really. And this is the idea of just fining bosses so much that it isn't worth their while hiring illegal migrants, which I think we'd better to send the bosses to Rwanda. Personally, but this is the new plan.
So, I mean, what I mean, I guess are we talking here about, because there's a lot, you know, Chinese restaurants, and Indian restaurants, there's a lot of migration used there. Does that mean we're going to be paying more?
Yeah, we're going to be paying more. So I think what we need to do is we need to look at the illegal migrants and go, right, are you good when it comes to doing a curry, all sweet and sour pork? Because if you are, this way, please.
There we go. There's a Telegraph always... no, let's stick with the Telegraph for a second. Don't throw it away, because they've got another little story there.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands to miss university offer. This is quite an interesting thing, Kerry, about grade inflation over the last few years, certainly through COVID, where essentially you got the grade that you thought you deserved. Do you think this is a good course correction?
So, sorry, what's the reason why they're missing university places?
Well, because now they're actually going to have to work for it.
Yeah.
They're going to have to actually... OK, because it's actually higher than that. They're going to miss the university play. I'm not getting one.
Yeah.
You know, there's loads of people like us who haven't even been informed. Well, of course, the effects of lockdown are just coming now, and it's going to be years until we see how much damage we did in closing schools, confusing everything. So, yeah, that's just one of the after effects.
And you know what? The Telegraph still coming through with yet more actual news. They've got NatWest limits access to cash for certain customers. Now, of course, this is on the back of what's happened with Farage. This is a big deal, and I think people are slowly becoming more aware of the kind of we're walking into this cashless society.
Yep.
Or being pushed.
Well, we are being pushed into a cashless society, because it seems that more and more you go to certain companies like Pretz or your Aldis, and they don't accept cash. And it just feels like we're being denied cash. And if you look at the way that we use cash before the pandemic and after the pandemic, it is completely different. I haven't seen cash since the pandemic.
You haven't seen cash?
No.
Do you remember what cash looks like?
No, mate, I can't even remember what cash looks like.
We don't even get a choice now. Either people push the card reader to you almost immediately, and it's very rare now someone even considers you might want to pay. They're surprised.
That was the front night at the strip club, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
It was a hard different time.
Yeah. What's the front page of The Guardian going with, Francis?
So the front page with The Guardian is all about MPs' second jobs, Joshy. So it's basically saying that there's a lot of MPs, surprise, surprise, Tory MPs, who are claiming a huge amount of money for their second jobs. If you've got people like, for instance, Geoffrey Cox, who's been paid nearly £6 million as a lawyer, and you go, well, he's a lawyer, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is, if he's working all those hours as a lawyer, how is he serving his constituents? And I think the answer to this, and this is a controversial point, and I know a lot of people don't like it, I think we need to pay our MPs more. I think we need to pay our MPs more.
And then ban them from doing other jobs?
Ban them from having a second job. Do you listen? Jacob Rees-Mogg, according to The Guardian here, is paid 29 grand a month to do this show.
Wow, to do this show?
Yeah.
To do his show, to do this channel, you mean?
Yeah, to do this channel.
29 grand.
29 grand.
Yeah,
I've got 600,000 YouTube subscribers.
What do you get?
He doesn't have
We're all getting £29 for this, aren't we?
Well, yeah, we're not even getting that after.
But of course, if they do
I didn't know you were getting
£29.
£29.
If we do ban second jobs, we are going to lose half the presenters here at GB News.
They do say. So it's a positive.
The Guardian does say for the right-wing GB News channel, they have to put the right-wing in every time.
Can't they just be...
I didn't know. No one told me this was right-wing. I wouldn't have done it.
It's very frustrating, because it's like they're constantly pushing forward this narrative. Just because you have right-wing people on it doesn't make it right-wing.
There are right-wing people on it. I was told it's a free speech channel where I can say what I like. Is that still true or not?
That's right-wing.
Shut up,
I'm whatever
Kerry.
wing I say I am in any given moment.
But the biggest, and here's an interesting stat, you know who the one who earns the most from Labour?
I'm going to guess.
Go on.
Oh, from Labour?
From Labour. Who's the biggest, who's the one who coins it the most in for Labour?
I don't know, Keir Starmer?
No, David Lammy. 90 grand a month.
Oh, is that LBC?
Oh, of course,
Oh, really? Yeah, of course.
Yeah, by the way, let's put that in proportion to Boris Johnson, who's getting about 5 million.
The Guardian also have a little story here about your sleep is affected by your postcode, which is, I'll be looking that up and trying to find out whether my postcode affects my sleep or not. I'm probably losing sleep over that tonight.
Oh, wow, sorry, it's adding to it. More
totally.
Right, well, let's finish with the Daily Star, Kerry.
Illogical captain, says the Daily Star, and this is a story. William Shatner has stepped into the discussion of whether there are aliens visiting us and amongst us.
He's an expert, of course.
And as an expert who has been there, William Shatner says no. And there's a little cartoon of Spock saying, "Little green men, I'm all ears," which is a joke about his big ears, if you haven't figured that out. And this is become big again. There's been more.
I've literally seen physical evidence of him visual evidence of him talking to aliens. Why is he now turning around and
He
saying
went
no
around the
aliens?
universe and taught them about love. I don't know how we can take that back, really. They solved most of their problems.
The Prime Directive.
Well, they're just trying to silence it, aren't they? It's a government scheme, mate.
Wait, the cat's been out of the bag for a long time now.
I know.
Wow. Well, William Shatner, I'm sorry. I don't believe you. That's it for part one. Coming up in part two, we're looking into police admin, Musk's deep pockets and some political mudslinging. See you in a couple of minutes.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, no, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different. Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Josh Howie, joined tonight by my best friends, Francis Foster and Kerry Marks. You guys didn't know you were my best friends, did you?
No. Nice way to find out.
But I just wanted to let you know, and that's why I brought you here this evening. First up is Monday's iNews, and Francis, Labour has discovered a unique way of dealing with the migrant problem.
Well, absolutely. Labour are absolutely smashing it. So they're going to continue short-term use of barges to house migrants, Shadow Minister admits. And that's because it's all very well to be in opposition and to criticise the Tories and go, they're evil, they're racist, meh, 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 meh. All of a sudden, you're going to come in and you're going to be faced with the bitter reality that this country is falling to pieces and the infrastructure is a shambles. And so, Stephen Kinnock, the Shadow Minister, said, the reality is that we've got tens of thousands of people in hotels. We need to get them out of hotels and we need to get them off the barges and out of the military camps too. He then threw the Tories under a bus, which is fair enough because they've been in power for what seems the last 90 years. But he's basically said that Labour are going to do everything that they can, but they're all going to be on the barges.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about this, Kerry? Some people would say this is them being somewhat hypocritical, but some people might argue this is them being mature.
The whole story here is we haven't got a plan either, really, isn't it? I mean, we're going to get them out of barges and military camps and not saying what they're getting them into. So you can't get people out of something without planning on what's the next stage. And there is no next stage here. They're saying about getting rid of these contingency measures, but they have no new contingency measures. They're talking about the mess the government made, but they're not talking about how to tidy it up. There's just no actual plan or story. Well, they're admitting they've got the same problem. They're saying we will keep that going until we come up with something. So, which is nothing.
Which they don't have a plan, though.
Yeah, but they've got a plan to sort of get rid of the backlog, is what they're criticising the Tory government about. But yes, they don't sort of say, oh, by the way, when we do deal with the backlog and the people that we let in, what are we going to do with the people we don't let in? Yeah. And what are we going to do with the people that we do? Because taking them out of hotels, OK, great, let's take them out of hotels, and now they're in accommodation that doesn't exist.
Yeah, but the thing is, they can't really go up on Ascension Island. They can't say they're going to go to have an even better, more paradise island than this one. So what do you do next? I mean...
Bahamas.
Well, maybe we have them build canal boats, you know? I mean, even build canals.
Jesus, this is...
Look,
you've changed.
I'm on the right-wing GBNews channel. No, but why is that wrong? If my family are in trouble and someone says, come and live on my farm, but you've got to work and you can live here, then that's not right-wing. That's a decent arrangement, right?
Yeah, it is right-wing.
Build barges. These people are good at boats.
Well, OK, on to the Telegraph. And forget China, there's a new villain in town, Kerry.
Iran, I'm not sure they're a new villain, but this is the Telegraph telling us that... Well, they're saying that Iran is now UK's biggest security threat. This is according to Suella Braverman, who I presume would know about things like this. She's warned that last year Tehran had been behind 10 murders and kidnap plots, and this year it's gone up to 15. And the method now is because they can't work through the old spying methods ever since what happened with Salisbury poisonings. And, of course, there was the Litvinenko murder some years ago, which we live around there, of course. That was in Crouch End, or he lived in Crouch End.
I walk past it every day.
Yeah.
Really? Where?
I don't know.
I do.
I'm assuming you do.
No, I do. He was killed. We discovered there's a spy living just along my road, and then just a few days later, I looked out the window, and I swear I saw a tree moving up the road
I think
behind
that was
a person.
What you took at the time. You were quite heavily into your psychedelics.
Also, Kerry, your life...
It turned out it was Christmas. It was just something.
Your life is like an Enid Blyton book, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. So anyway, because of those, the spies who didn't turn out to be anything like we imagined with James Bond, they were really hopeless with excuses like children. And as a result, we've closed these loops. And now what's happening is the networks are working through organised gangs.
Yeah, because they know what they're doing.
Yes, totally.
Yeah, but what do you... I mean, this sort of seems, Francis, like, why have the Iranian guards not been prescribed? That's what I don't understand.
Look, to me, this is just a ridiculous story. They say they're responsible for 10 murders. That's less than some 16-year-olds in this city, mate. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we do try to deal with them.
Where? But we don't. I mean, look, to me, it's a ridiculous non-story. We really need to talk about the Chinese, mate, because they're the ones.
Really?
This programme has become...
Sounds like you're taking any money from... you got a lot of Iranian viewers on that podcast.
Yeah, we do, mate.
The extreme right-wing GBNews channel.
Interesting.
Yeah, OK.
OK, well, no, I mean, there's also another story that came out this week, I don't know if you saw, that the Jewish Chronicle unveiled about the same organisation, the Iranian Guards, Islamic Revolutionary Guards, basically giving talks on our campuses, saying, like, it's time to end the era of Jews and whatnot. Well, there's 2 on this channel right now. Good luck. Right, Monday's Daily Mail next.
You as well?
Afraid so.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, he doesn't like to...
and I look it, so, I mean, I'm a token Jew.
I like being outed.
Monday's Daily Mail next, and the Met has lost some sex offenders. Probably find a few if they start looking within, Francis.
Absolutely, and on the London comedy circuit. So, at least...
Any names you want to say?
Yeah, there's lots of them, mate. Okay. Anyway, well, they can't afford to sue me, so it'll be fine. So, anyway, at least 500 convicted sex offenders are missing in the UK, with Met Police admitting it has lost nearly half of them. So they've lost track of more than 500 committed sex offenders, which is an absolutely horrendous number. These include paedophiles and rapists. And just in the London Metropolitan Police alone, I think it was 238 are missing.
Wow.
Yeah, which is obviously a horrifying number. But this was something else that this article brought to light, in that Do you know if you're a sex offender, you're allowed to change your name?
Yeah, Kerry,
I'm glad you carried on that sentence.
Yeah.
I didn't know, do you know if you're a sex offender? Yes, I do, actually.
Yeah.
Well, your original name's Bob, isn't it?
Yeah. Bob Daniels.
I didn't call myself Bob the sex offender. I had to change the surname because that was the giveaway. It's weird, isn't it? It's I think how we treat offenders says a lot about us and who we are as a country. But still, with this one, I think poke their eyes out and chop their legs off so they can't run away. What do you mean they can change their names and not report in? How's that even possible? But use our technology. Nowadays, if you back up your car, it starts beeping to say the curb's close behind you. Can't we give them something that does it when they're near a child?
Just chip them like you do with a dog.
Why can't we?
Yeah.
That was one of the Sacha Baron Cohen sketches when he was doing it with a politician. He said, "Oh, we've developed this special paedophile alarm," and then every time it got close to, because this guy had slept with a young woman. That was very much.
This is embarrassing, though, isn't it? I mean,
It is embarrassing. You know what's even more embarrassing is that it takes journalism to uncover this stuff as opposed to the police doing their job.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised, but still, when you read this stuff, it's crazy. Right, has Musk finally found a way to bankrupt himself in this story from The Guardian, Kerry?
Musk has offered to pay the legal bills of people who put anything onto Twitter, which is now called X, that gets them, say, fired from a job and so on, which, if he's actually going to do this, it is going to cost a fortune. It's going to be a crazy idea. So what it was Twitter has now become X, which I understand him doing that. He wants to stamp his authority on the thing. It looks awful.
It's terrible. It looks like a nightclub in Essex, doesn't it? X.
Yeah,
okay.
But I suppose it goes.
You've got to speak from experience.
It goes with his SpaceX thing, I suppose, and and then he's got his executives below him who are now ex-executives, and if they get fired, they're ex-executives.
Very good. We haven't heard a joke on headliners for quite a while, so let's look at a proper
joke.
I'm not sure it was one, but yes. So Twitter is an ex-bird; it has ceased to be, and now. So I don't know how this works. If you write something on Twitter and it gets you fired, so if I put on Twitter tonight that Elon Musk is an idiot or I'm going to kill him, and then this programme fires me, he now has to give me the money to fight a court case to be allowed to say that about him. Is that right?
No, he doesn't have to do anything, Kerry.
He said he will.
He has to. It's written down in the Guardian.
He said he will do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen the tweet. He doesn't have to do anything. It wouldn't surprise me if Elon was sitting on the John and he just went, you know what, that sounds like a good idea, I'll just fire that out. And then everybody's just gone in and just gone, yep, Elon is definitely going to do this.
Are you saying he's got no principles? Are you saying Elon Musk is not sincere?
Mate, I'm saying he fired off a tweet and now he's probably thinking, that was a bit wrong, wasn't it?
You're saying that's not all he fired off?
I mean, he's doing this, of course, the idea is to protect free speech or to draw attention to it. Do you think it will have an impact in that way? Because he's saying that when you hit threaten suing in America, that's the thing that makes an impact. And we have seen that with, arguably, detransitioners now suing their doctors.
Well, I think what Musk is actually trying to do is what he's trying to do is to build Twitter into being this all-encompassing platform where it's going to be having all different types of content. So you're going to be having written articles, you're going to be having video articles, and it's going to be an all-encompassing hub, as it were. And for me, this is just another way for him to publicise this hub.
I think that is that. But the reality of it, though, shouldn't there be some consequences for free speech? I mean, there's plenty of places on the internet where people say
there's
anything.
paedophiles everywhere. We need to point them out.
All right, let's move that. And we haven't even got on to, hate speech and whatnot. Before we go to a break, does this Express story explain why some products will not be seen within the upcoming break, Francis?
Yes, so this is in the Daily Express. Two directors of a campaign group that presses advertisers on diversity issues made light of Nigel Farage being debanked. Shock, horror. One of them has described Nigel as being a fascist. And I bet if you ask this person and you ask them to define what fascism actually is, they would have no way of explaining it to you. And this is a problem, in that when this case with Nigel happened, there are so many people on the left, so many people who were progressives who saw it as a good thing because they disagreed with his views. And not realising that actually the weapons that are used against your enemies will invariably, after a period of time, be used against you. But sadly, they are so morally righteous, they feel that they are on the right side of history and they can never be in the wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Kerry, there is something ironic here about someone trying to shut down other people's voices for wrongthink, calling other people fascist.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and these people are the conscious advertising network. They've thrown in the word conscious. What's an unconscious advertising network? The word conscious is only there so they can call it right?
I was sleeping and I just mentioned spaghetti hoops in my sleep.
Yeah, exactly.
I think this whole debanking is going to become one of those new words that will go in the dictionary soon, isn't it? And we're seeing the birth of it, because I don't think it's been around before, has it? I think it's something very new as a thing. And to see banks being the new moral guardians of society is just bizarre.
It's bizarre,
really.
isn't it? Like, whoever looked at a group of bankers and thought, you know what, mate? You're the people who should be actually lecturing us about how to live our lives.
You're a banker, act like it.
Yeah, exactly. When you're stumbling out of Stringfellows at 3 o'clock in the morning with a nosebleed because you've done too much Charlie, actually, that's what I think of when I think of the words, what would Jesus do?
A lot of your material is nightclub-based.
Yeah, it is, mate. Well, you know, you employ a hip young comedian, mate, that's what you're going to get.
On a Sunday, I go and confess to my banker everything and see what they think.
Very good. That's it for part 2. Join us for part 3, when we'll be talking about forgotten people, the BBC's shrinking budget, and some powerful online content. Do not go away.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we have seen quite a few showers across the UK for many today, though it has been dry for some. And as we look towards the new week, this area of high pressure will just come across the UK very briefly, bringing some settled weather across the south. But back to tonight's weather, and showers will slowly ease, becoming more confined to northern and western areas. Clear spells elsewhere combined with light winds will make for quite a cool night tonight. So temperatures in rural areas dropping into mid or even low single figures. It will make for a fresh but bright start to the new week with plenty of sunshine around, though we will start to see that cloud bubbling up, allowing showers to develop through the morning. Showers will be mostly across northern areas. They might just creep into East Anglia for a time, with that high pressure keeping things mostly dry across the south. We're feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine with highs of 22 or locally 23 in the southeast. Now, as we go into Tuesday, an area of low pressure moves in from the west. Nothing as developed as what we saw on Saturday, but will bring quite a bit of cloud, rain and drizzle, especially to western areas. A drier and brighter day across the north. And as we look towards midweek, that drier and more settled weather looking to stay around with those temperatures on the rise.
That warm feeling inside. From Boxed Boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
The Live Desk with me, Mark Longhurst.
And me, Pip Thompson. It's here Monday to Friday on GB News.
From midday, we'll bring you the news as it breaks, whenever it's happening and wherever it's happening, from across the UK and around the world.
Refreshing, feisty, but with a bit of fun too.
If it matters to you, we'll have it covered on TV, radio and online.
Join the Live Desk on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
So Jubes and Kerr, we tackle the issues of the day with real, robust debate, both sides of the fence, battling it out with me in the middle with my forthright opinions and views. And often really interesting things happen because you start with a position and then by the end of the debate you find actually, well, I might not have thought about that one.
What we need in this country is 2 new political parties.
You should maybe think about doing a 2024 calendar. I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm keeping you company right through until 7 o'clock this evening.
GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's watching.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In a world of dull and predictable radio and TV shows.
Oh, hi. On Mark Dolan tonight, we've got big guests. We drill into the big stories of the day. The show adds up to a brilliant listening and viewing experience. Mark Dolan Tonight is the most entertaining current affairs show ever, and that's a fact. That's Mark Dolan Tonight, Friday, Saturday and Sunday from 9. Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Like all families, we have arguments every now and then, but actually we agree on what the mission of GB News is, and that's the most fundamentally important thing.
GB News provides the kind of platform that lets all voices be heard. We don't hold back. We're free to say what we really think.
Just because some people who live in a tiny little Westminster bubble think that their particular story is important, that's not the most important story for me.
And often they will be difficult stories, stories that you won't find on the establishment media.
Because what people think in the north of England may be very different to what they're thinking in the home counties.
We're going to carry on telling the world what life is really like for households up and down the UK.
We love to be in your car, in your kitchen as you're having your breakfast. Whatever you're doing, you are part of the show. If it matters to you, it matters to us.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Headliners, and let's get straight into it with Monday's iNews. And Kerry, is Labour trying to eat its gender woo-woo cake and eat it?
I like that sentence, and I like the fact you tried it and almost achieved it. This is Annalise Dodds, the Shadow Equalities Minister, saying that Labour wants to tackle indignities for trans people and protect women's spaces. Protecting women's spaces is now this new idea of the 21st century, of where we've reached, that Labour have come across as, of course, for a while there's been an ideology that has been railroading through society and like a mad train that smashed into a wall of public opinion in Scotland and is now doing the same here. And we're seeing that train sort of going back on the track a little bit. And
how dare you say that?
How dare I?
Two-time male rapist be a woman? You disgusting bigot.
Yeah, so really we're seeing a sort of winding back from Labour now, as we did from the SNP, of once again finding it difficult to find policies that will separate themselves from the Tories.
But it's interesting that they're having to sort of reiterate what they did a week or so ago, Francis. I mean, they're backtracking in there. But what's interesting is, to me, reading this, is the way, and also the way they originally sold their U-turn on this, which is a welcome U-turn, arguably, of course. But they're sort of saying, we're trying to help you trans people, and we're protecting women's spaces. Like, it does feel like they're kind of hiding it.
It's a complete fudge, Josh. They know that the vast majority of people don't buy into this nonsense. There's only two sexes, there's men and women's spaces need to be protected. And they need to be protected in law. And everybody knows and understands that for reasons which don't need to be explained.
But it took them a long time to get here, right?
Right, but it's still a fudge, because they're still going on and using this kind of language about indignities and so on and so forth and whatever else.
There's nothing wrong with fudge, though.
What they're trying to do is they're trying to have common sense whilst appealing to the loons at the far left of the Labour Party who thinks there's a trans genocide.
There we go.
Which they have to an extent, though. I mean, this preaching to the choir thing is something which both parties do, right? You've got to keep the choir singing. So you do... he's playing a very difficult role right now, and he's got to court that hard left as well, to an extent. So I can understand a bit of it. I think if actually he's impressively managing to put his foot down on a whole load of issues and facing a great deal of criticism from his party.
Too many analogies going on for me in that one. Telegraph now, and a plot for the next Carry On nurse, Francis.
Absolutely. Now, this was, I mean, I was going to say unbelievable, but let's be fair, it's 2023, so it's completely believable. Hospital, and this is from the Telegraph, hospital cancelled my surgery after I complained about a transgender nurse. And this is an awful story. And this is actually not in an NHS hospital. This is in a private hospital in central London, the Princess Grace, and it referred to a lady called Ms Steele.
And the hospital actually specialises in women's health. That's the other mental thing.
Yeah, Bird Health, to be its correct name. Right, and what actually happened is she specified that she wanted it to be on a single-sex ward with single-sex lavatories, single-sex bathrooms, etc., etc.
And intimate care.
by biological women.
Yeah, by biological women, because she's a massive turf. And she ended up getting her an email in response from Maxine Estop Green. Now, there's someone who never went to a comprehensive school, the hospital CEO, who says, "We do not share your beliefs and not able to adhere to your requests, and therefore the operation is cancelled." Right? So this poor lady...
Where's she from?
I don't know. So it was some posh part.
That was a country I've never even heard that accent before, but...
Right. And then, as a result, this poor lady had her operation cancelled. As a result of that, her condition has been exacerbated. She only now had the operation in February of this year, so she had to wait for months to have it. But she has actually said, look, if you promise for this never to happen again, I will not sue you.
Well, I feel that that's an incredible reaction to this.
It
is. Because she wants the problem solved so that women in the future have the right in these hospitals.
It's also, first we're told that the trans are a tiny minority, and next the hospital can't find a non-trans nurse to treat her. Is amazing. But there's certain times, whatever people feel on this issue, there's certain times in life where it's not considered sexist to state a sexual choice.
It's always considered
There is
sexist.
certain times it is definitely not considered a sexist. Whilst having a body search, you can say you want a man or a woman to do it on a dating site, and when you're having an intimate procedure, a medical procedure of some kind. That doesn't mean, of course, you can always... I can't request a woman to do my intimate procedure, apparently. It has to be a man in that case. But
have you tried?
I haven't tried, but I will back this up at some point. I even find the term biological woman just ridiculous that we're using that now. I mean, are there women who aren't biological?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just robots.
Trans women.
Yeah.
OK,
if you're not biological, that's just robot, isn't it? It's like saying a human woman.
OK. Some BBC fun now from The Express, Kerry. You're another, aren't you? Biological man?
I'm a biological man, yeah. Where are we now?
Oh,
we're at
yeah,
Express. OK, so this is just silly. So, the BBC have been mocked over a missing option in a survey they sent out to their staff, asking people... They wanted to find out which sexual orientation members of their staff are, and they asked, are you bi, gay, lesbian, or other, which I thought othering people was supposed to be bad now, but apparently that's perfectly in. So what they would have found out with their survey is that most people, the majority of people, are other now. Yes. It's an odd one to leave out. I mean, look, it was a mistake, but someone's put here correctly that there's all this money spent on diversity officers, and they overlook that some people are straight. It's just remarkable.
Some people are straight. Deal with it.
But actually, there's an argument that's quite telling, because it seems like heterosexuality is being absorbed by queer ideology, where you have a bunch of people, like we have that comic Sophie Hagen, who sort of says, I'm queer, but she's never kissed a girl or been interested in a homosexual relationship, but she just wants to be interesting, by her own admittance.
Yeah, and I mean, that is the whole part of this, is I actually find genuinely distasteful, because gay people over... many years have had to face some awful, horrendous bigotry, violence...
From you?
From me, mate, and it's just banter. Why can't they handle it? But... And then all of a sudden you have these people coming along, essentially doing what, queer face, and going, oh, yeah, I identify as gay.
Yeah, well, you should
Why not just identify as interesting? Solve the problem in the first place.
I tried that, mate. No one believed me.
Interesting phenomenon. More BBC action from their best buddies, the Daily Mail, Francis.
Yes, indeed. So the BBC face a mass revolt from TV viewers, with 2.8 million claiming they no longer need to pay TV licence fees. So that's 2.8 million people. And that has meant that the BBC has now lost revenue of 59 million. And obviously this then gives rise to a lot of people saying, well, we need to defund the BBC, we need to get rid of the licence fee, we need to scrap it, it's no longer fit for purpose, etc, etc. But I don't think, if I'm being honest and fair to the BBC, this is a problem just affecting the BBC. I think what is actually happening is TV is hemorrhaging viewers, because the reality is why would you sit down at 8 o'clock on a Tuesday evening to watch whatever programme when you can watch it on catch-up, or you can watch it on a number of streaming platforms? And why would you watch substandard, badly made comedies when you can go on other platforms and watch much better ones?
Well, there we are. I mean, what do you think, Kerry?
Well, no, I think the BBC is, for all its faults, I think it provides a quite remarkably good service most of the time. But at the same time, it's about time to become a subscription service. There's no reason why. This isn't like, this says people are claiming they no longer need to pay. Of course they don't need to pay. If you're not watching it, you shouldn't have to pay for it. If you're not, I don't watch, I rarely watch television at all,
The
so
people who do pay,
I don't want to have to pay for it.
44p a day, and it still seems it's more popular than all the other services combined.
Yeah.
Let's not forget that.
But they used to send out those letters warning people. There was some of the worst threatening letters ever.
Yeah.
Well, worse than the chainmail was these warnings that we know what you're up to, you're watching us, and we're going to get you.
Yeah,
I mean, it was always disgusting.
There is, look, it's the Daily Mail. They've obviously got it in for the BBC.
Yeah.
Does it really come down to just a cost of living crisis as well?
Yeah, and it also...
Sure.
But look, and one of the things that I find sad about this whole story, actually, is I have a great deal of affection for the BBC, as I think everybody does who's sitting around this table.
Sure.
They produced amazing programmes. If you think about Attenborough and the wildlife documentaries, you think of the amazing comedies, the dramas...
But it's past tense, what you're saying.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is past tense, unfortunately, because the quality simply isn't there anymore.
Well, stick with headliners then. That's the end of part 3. Join us for part 4, when we'll be discussing Matt Hancock's latest plans to look after us, male beauty tips and yuppies. Remember them? See you in 2.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by headliners on TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it. So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners, and let's get straight into it. Monday's Mirror and a new role for John Prescott, Francis.
Indeed. So the Matt Hancock has come out and he said something else. And what he said...
He does that.
Yeah, he does that.
It's crazy that way.
Yeah,
He's always saying stuff.
He really has a thing or two to say.
He's just a maverick, mate. It's how he lives his life. So Matt Hancock has come out and said he wants everyone in Parliament to get self-defence lessons. Yeah, exactly.
Is that racist? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. No,
When you do it, yes. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think Matt Hancock is saying that, you know, that things have got a little bit heated at the moment, and he's never known things to be so bad.
But is it just him?
I think it may be him.
By the way, I don't really like you calling him Matt Hancock. He's known now as I'm a Celebrity Matt Hancock. In everywhere where he's written about.
Yeah, you can see his first name.
You do one TV thing and that now takes over your whole career in the past.
Headliners, Kerry Marks.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, what do you think about this? I mean, it is actually, there is a serious point here that this is sad that we've reached this level of discourse, political discourse,
Yes.
where, and this is all because he was physically attacked.
Look, he may need self-defence classes more than he might be
others.
Sort of, just
But we have
assuming
had
this on other
MPs
people, but that has happened.
murdered.
And of course it does happen. And also I do notice, I notice that I think it's a product of the internet, but I see people talk about politicians in a far more murderous way than I think they used to. It's always, I want to punch this person, kill this person, and I don't think it has always, but not as much at least as I see these days. But you think about it, the politicians the guy who attacked him on a train and said that he'd been murdering people because of the pandemic, and politicians are constantly having to make decisions that involve people dying. Either way with the pandemic, they would have been, whether it was lockdown or not lockdown, they would have been accused of killing people. They have to make decisions to do with war, refugees, abortion, and so on. And so there's always possible for people to get angry and say that they're killing people. Yeah. So that's not. I mean, we all got a politician we'd love to punch, but I don't think it's okay to do so. And I think maybe they do need self-defence lessons, and maybe even we could get them into a ring and start fighting each other rather than all this blah, blah, blah they keep doing.
Well, yeah, potentially. But you do make a very good point, Kerry, and when we look at things, you know, like the murder of Sir David Amess and also Joe Cox, and you actually start to think that how long will it be before MPs actually get their own protection units?
And then you see also, Greenpeace going to the home of the Prime Minister.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's mental.
But also we get the security reviews then, and they do offer better security for the MPs, but then we're all paying for that, you know, so it's no better.
Right, time to bring out your old yuppie material now for the Telegraph piece, Kerry.
OK, the Telegraph is... I'm not really sure I much follow this story, but or where this has come from. The yuppies weren't all bad, despite what their virtual signalling puppies say. And what I understand is that the new generation are now being called yuppie puppies because they're the children of the yuppies, which they're not. They're mostly the grandchildren of the yuppies, aren't they, really?
No, children.
Really?
Yeah.
When's yuppies? That's 80s, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so people now in their sort of 40s would be...
The older parents.
Would be now the adults.
And some in between, I guess.
Anyway.
What were they called? What were the in-betweens between yuppies and yuppie puppies?
I don't know.
Of course, I remember all the yuppie time, and there was lots of yuppie jokes, one of which was the yuppie who has a car crash, and he's like, my car, and the guy who finds him says, you should worry more about the fact your arm is chopped off, and he's like, oh, my Rolex, which was a popular joke at the time, which tells you a lot about the attitude towards yuppies.
I thought there was one person in here who came across very well. Josh Howie, 47, decided not to follow in his mother's footsteps and became a stand-up comic and is now an actor and a pundit for the right-wing outlet GB News.
Yeah.
Right-wing again, and this is the Telegraph.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we should just put right-wing GB News on all our logos.
Indeed. It's interesting. I gave this interview last week. Someone called up and said, I'm doing this thing about the yuppies. And I did actually make a point of saying, it sort of makes me out to be sort of a bit of a whiner, which I am. But I also said, you know, respect to those people. They went out there, mostly from working class backgrounds, like my mother and father are, and they really worked hard and, you know, and they set a good example. And I got lots of advantages from it. So it's sort of annoying for that stuff to not be in. But anyway.
But this is the thing that we forget about the 80s, because, well, of course, with the 80s, you had the miners' strikes, etc., etc. But it was also a time, the 80s, where there was a lot of social mobility. There was a lot of social mobility, particularly for working class people who had the opportunity to buy their own house, who had their opportunity to make a good deal of money for themselves. It was the age of aspiration.
Yeah, and even at that point, the discrepancy between the highest earners and the lowest earners was not the chasm that it is today.
Yeah.
No, of course not. But every generation rebels against the last generation, and and the X generation were already rebels, so Y and Z rebelled against rebellion.
So how do you like me on GB News, Mum? Hey, hey. Right. Sun next, and it seems the Taliban really have no shame, Francis.
No, those boys have done it again. They've been upsetting everyone, mate. The furious Taliban use international treaty as a loophole to avoid paying more than £125,000 in UK parking tickets. And so what they've done, these diplomats are said to have regularly left vehicles on double yellows.
Disgusting.
Disgusting, mate.
Forget they're not allowing women to attend school.
They made music illegal, they've been burning instruments, they gassed schoolgirls, they stopped schoolgirls from going to higher education, but now they're not paying parking fines.
I mean, there's no level to it.
It's shocking.
This is shocking. You know what the worst bit is, right? That Joe Biden very graciously left them Chinook helicopters. He left them, weaponry and all of that thing worth billions.
Translators, loads of translators.
And this is how they pay us back.
There we go. Sometimes a story and a panellist fit together perfectly. This in the Metro is not one of those times, Kerry.
Botox is on the rise among men who don't feel Kenough. This is a real stretch in this particular headline. Brotox is the Botox done by men is Brotox now. So,
I see, bro.
Yeah.
Play on words.
It works better than Mantox, I guess. Yeah. And if they don't feel Kenough because they don't feel enough like
now,
Ken.
Do either of you know anybody who's had any plastic surgery?
Really painful.
You've got pretty smooth skin. You look like you could have.
No, mate, I've never had plastic surgery.
But do you know
It's just a way of saying I obviously have not had that surgery.
I'm not even going to say you.
I came from the age where they kept telling us to look natural and like how you look.
Really?
Then they changed it.
And you've done it.
I know they lied to us.
Good for you. Right, the show is nearly over, so let's take another quick look at Monday's front pages. The Daily Mail, remote island plan for channel migrants. Telegraph, bosses who hire illegal migrants face ruin. The Guardian, MPs defy anger over second jobs with outside earnings of £10 million. Mirror, 74% demand action on danger dogs. Good. iNews, secret labs vaccine plan to prevent bird flu pandemic. Been there, done that. And finally, the Daily Star, illogical captain. And those were your front pages. That is all we have time for. Thank you very much to my guests, Francis Foster and Kerry Marks. I'll see you both in the taxi home. Andrew Doyle will be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Leo Kearse and Nick Dixon. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, stay tuned for breakfast. Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, my name's Rachel Ayres and welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast brought to you by the Met Office. So we have seen quite a few showers across the UK for many today, though it has been dry for some. And as we look towards the new week, this area of high pressure will just come across the UK very briefly, bringing some settled weather across the south. But back to tonight's weather, and showers will slowly ease, becoming more confined to northern and western areas. Clear spells elsewhere combined with light winds will make for quite a cool night tonight. So temperatures in rural areas dropping into mid or even low single figures. It will make for a fresh but bright start to the new week with plenty of sunshine around, though we will start to see that cloud bubbling up, allowing showers to develop through the morning. Showers will be mostly across northern areas. They might just creep into East Anglia for a time, with that high pressure keeping things mostly dry across the south. We're feeling pretty pleasant in the sunshine with highs of 22 or locally 23 in the southeast. Now, as we go into Tuesday, an area of low pressure moves in from the west. Nothing as developed as what we saw on Saturday, but will bring quite a bit of cloud, rain and drizzle, especially to western areas. A drier and brighter day across the north. And as we look towards midweek, that drier and more settled weather looking to stay around with those temperatures on the rise.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, proud sponsors of weather on GB News.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamon.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamon and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
People in Britain, they love free speech, but they also love fair play.
I don't care if I'm speaking somebody from a trade union, from the Labour Party, somebody from the SNP. And I think the viewers like to see that actually we can challenge one another, but in a positive way.
We think we ask the questions that people want to ask, and often we ask the questions that we wanted to ask in Parliament but never got the chance to ask.
So join us every Saturday, 10 a.m. till noon on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.